So, to start off, I appreciate everybody's amazing enthusiasm leading up to this space. We never really intended or expected this to blow up as big as it did. When we first kind of thought of doing a fork, it never really occurred to us to that it would become something that so many people wanted to be a part of. And thankfully, it seems that we weren't alone in our desire to kind of, for in the long and short of it, remove politics from the art, for lack of a better term. When we saw the drama happen, it was more of a catalyst than the actual reason. There had been longstanding issues that some of our founders had with the Godot engine and things of that nature that caused them to kind of want to do their own forks anyway. So we figured when we came together that why not start our own fork, and if other devs want to contribute, that would be awesome. And so what ended up happening, though, was that apparently more people than we expected were really, really desiring something like this. So we never really expected it to blow up the way it did, but we are very thankful for the immense amount of enthusiasm and praise and support that we've gotten so far. So that's the first thing that I kind of wanted to open up the space with before we get to any of the details. Now, just a little bit of background on the Godot and kind of what's been going on for the last week. So for the last week, we've been busy kind of organizing the community, getting our kind of all of our social medias in order, also making sure that the Discord community was well moderated, and also make sure that our GitHub was organized the way it should be, and that everybody had the correct permissions that they needed to have in order to assist and help. We were also rapidly bringing people on board that could work with our team lead, which is Drew, the lead on our GitHub, the person who originally forked the project. And we kind of agreed from the outset that we wanted this to be a community-driven project. We want to refocus the development of this engine back towards what the community has been desiring for a long time. There's been a lot of long languished features and things like that have seen either complete disregard or a lack of support for a very long time among the engine and all of these other things. And so yeah, hold on. Okay, great. I'm sorry. Just 1 second. I'm bringing up our lead dev now. He just entered, so I just got to find him here.
Here we go.
Seems like Spaces is not liking that. Hold on.
As is always the way. For those of you joining us, we are watching the launch space.
Okay. So, yep, he's coming up here in just a second, guys. But yes, so in the long and short of it, when we came together, we were a bunch of guys that just really wanted to see this thing happen, and whether or not it took off was kind of secondary in our minds. It was more about just having something fun to do, kind of divorced from all the political aspects of this project and what happened with Godot. And we wanted to create a space, a community space where people could work on games, talk about their love for gaming, and focus on giving for lack of a better term, a product that actually doesn't really interfere with people's passion for that, and instead enables it. Where the intense amount of enthusiasm has come from, I think, is that is the heart of it, is that a lot of people want that, they desire it, and we're really appreciative of that. So here in the speaker slot is Drew. He's our lead technical guy, and he's going to kind of talk about a little bit of why he's doing this, and then also some of the more technical aspects that we've encountered since we started this. So Go ahead, Drew.
Yeah, hey, can y'all hear me?
You're coming in good.
Okay, all right. First off, I think we started the space an hour early. It's supposed to be at 3, not 2, but that should be okay, I guess. Hopefully, the
It's
people
3
we
Eastern.
thought were going to be here will be here.
2 Central.
I don't know if you've pinged some of the people that you've had messages from at all. But anyway, yeah. So I'm Drew. So a little bit about me. I've been in and around game development for a good while. I've dabbled with Godot since 2014 when it was open sourced originally, and I love the engine. I've always loved it. The thing about cool. Godot, at least back then, was that it was very community driven. It was very much a community effort. And most recently, I feel like it's gotten kind of far away from that. So it's no longer the community-driven engine that it used to be. And I think that, and so I originally forked Godot in 2017, and my intent was at that point to just kind of like help out and maybe submit some PRs and learn the the code base of the engine, and just kind of have fun and help the community. And I never really got around to it. I had a kid, and life happened.
Yeah.
And it just so I've used it on and off, and I've continued to. And most recently, I'd started kind of using it again and dabbling with it and making some prototypes, and all the storm started happening. I've been increasingly, as I've watched the project grow, I've been increasingly concerned about the fact that it's gotten away from being a community developed product. So the more Godot has gotten community, or not community, but corporate sponsors and more of these kinds of things. And I understand, like, a small project, getting a corporate sponsor is huge, and being able to actually get paid for something you've been building for a bunch of years. So I don't fault Juan or any of the other people for that. But I think that Godot has gotten away from building features that the community wants, and instead maybe focusing more on building things that corporate sponsors want. Because, they're paying these devs large amounts of money to build features for them because they're using Godot, internally. And so, while that's not necessarily a bad thing, when you neglect a lot of the community fixes and things like that, and they've, a lot of these PRs, there's, I think last I looked, there was over 3,000 PRs just kind of languishing on the GitHub. I think that it's kind of reached a point where it's no longer community driven, but it's more driven by the corporate sponsorship and corporate need. And so I really kind of wanted to take it back to it being more of a community driven product, putting things in that the community has asked for or wants. But we've essentially forked an engine. So there's a lot of things that kind of go along with that, a lot of baggage. You're not building something from scratch. You're basically going to have to dig into a code base that's at least 10 years old. So, and we're a small team, so we're not, I don't know how many. I don't know how many devs that Godot actually has. I can remember back. I don't remember what year it was, but when they were only taking money from with their Patreon, they were trying to gain enough monthly on their Patreon so they could hire like an eighth dev, so a full-time eighth dev. So, and that's been a bunch of years ago. So we're obviously smaller than that. I think we've got probably about 5 or 6 devs at this point that are waiting to be able to contribute more and jump in, and a lot of them have already pulled down the repository and are checking PRs and things like that. So we've got a lot of work going on behind the scenes, and our plan is to essentially, at first,
there are currently about
try to keep the core of Godot what it is. So we don't want to make any heavy changes to core, because that then allows us to pull from upstream and get features and things that they're adding in, and then develop things on the side that we'll either develop as modules so that they can be put in if say someone goes to download Redot, and it'll basically pull modules automatically, so that when you open it, you'll have our finished product, instead of having to go on a store or somewhere and pull stuff by yourself.
Kind of makes sense.
So our intention is to try to keep the core Godot for as long as possible, because that just makes our job easier, especially as we're just getting rolling. And then any fixes and stuff. Yeah, we're gonna try to merge PRs, but initially we're gonna try to merge things that won't break core. Does that make sense? We don't want to create an issue where we're an early fork and then suddenly we are so far away from core that we can't just pull their fixes and their merges.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember that we want to make this maximally compatible, so that devs who are interested in joining and engaging with our engine and want to move over from Godot will have an easy way of doing that. Drew, what version are we going to be coming out with our first build?
So currently we are 4.4 dev. So we're essentially on the cutting edge, although we're also planning on releasing the stable branches 4.3, 3.6, I think. I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong when I get off of here. But that's the plan. We plan on having all the current branches that there is at the moment.
And then for going forward, what are some short, medium, and long-term plans we have in terms of some features that some of the community has been asking for?
There's been a lot that's been asked for. The ideas have been wild and crazy, such as completely replacing GD script, or putting in support for some obscure language. There's a lot of those kinds of things, obviously, but that's not our plan going forward. Our plan is to create a community, which we've done, and continue to build that out, where anybody can come, and the focus is on games and game dev, and that's it. None of the other stuff, none of the peripheral stuff that comes along with sometimes with communities and community driven projects. And then for the engine, our focus is to, at the very least, keep it simple. We don't want to get too crazy with making a whole bunch of changes. We're going to pull some of the PRs and we've already pulled and merged some of them that the community's asked for. initially we're going to have to really cherry pick because we don't want to put in anything that's going to break core. So that's our main focus, probably going to be for a while. We're going to obviously look at anything that the community is asking for. There's a lot of PRs out there that people have submitted to Godot that are sitting. We're going to comb those. We're going to find what we feel are good ones that won't break core. And then we're going to try to contact that person if they haven't contacted us already, because we want to make sure that credit goes where credit's due. If we didn't write that code, we don't want to take credit for that code. But they have an alternative place to put that code where it'll actually do some good.
Correct. And it's important to note that we want the community backing us as much as possible. So some ways that people can do that is finding PRs that improve the quality of life on it, UI enhancements, user experience features, and things like that are some of the things that we want to focus the community on. Again, we can't, we have limited resources. And so at the end of the day, we're going to need to really focus our team's efforts on areas in which we can make the most impact for our dollar, essentially, for lack of a better term. And so we really want to make sure that gets taken care of in a way that helps focus community resources as much as possible. Our devs are constantly in the community Discord. They're always talking to people and asking questions. They're constantly looking for feedback and other things like that. So that's one thing that people can do right away if they're not a coder per se, but there's someone who's been, or not an engine coder, but maybe there's someone who's been working with GDScript and producing their own game, and they have some feedback about that. We can definitely take a look at things like that, and that helps us figure out where there's the most ability for us to make the biggest impact. So in short, the broad goals that we have are stability, keeping parity for as long as possible, and building features as modules in a similar fashion to Linux, if anyone is familiar with that.
Yeah, so right. So the way I kind of explained it was that with Linux, you have this core of stuff, and then everything else kind of plugs into that. Like an electrical strip, basically. So that's kind of maybe hopefully a good visual. And then when somebody downloads, they go to our download link and they download Redot. It will actually come with some modules built in, if that makes sense, so that they're not having to go and be like, okay, where's all the Redot stuff? Well, it just comes with it,
sort of.
But that's sort of done on the back end.
Yes. And so those are some of the big kind of roadmap look at what we're looking at for this project. One of the things that, one of the ways in which we've been communicating with our community about this project is that we want the FOSS community, open source community, to do what it's meant to do, what it was originally kind of envisioned to do, and that is bring improvements into a project so that it improves the community as a whole. If Godot decides that what we're doing for the engine is useful and helpful, we encourage them to please take in these changes, because these are the kind of pressure that can be very healthy for both engines going forward. We're not going to be shy about using things that they've produced any more than they should be shy from using things that we have implemented as well.
Right. So, yeah, there's obviously a lot of flack flying around and questions about why we forked, why we're doing this, all this kind of stuff. And, you hate Godot and this and that. And the simple answer to that is no, we absolutely do not hate Godot, or we would not have forked it. If you hate something, you don't fork it. You just go build something different.
That's true. We
loved Godot enough to fork it. And, if if some of the community feel like we're doing something good, then they'll support it. But there's plenty of room for both projects. I don't think anybody has to, nobody has to worry about, oh, we hate Godot, we're rivals. I don't feel like we're rivals. This is open source. Open source is, if you disagree with something or you just want to do something different, you just fork the thing and move on. That's why it's open source. That's the way it's been for many, many, many years. And if the project was meant to be closed source, it would not have been open source.
Yeah, and that's about 50% of the look at what we're doing with this entire project. So 50% is kind of this idea of building out this engine and making it basically apolitical in a sense, and kind of keep it away from basically drama, which can be detrimental to devs who want to work on games. And so the other half of this sort of project is also building out a community that actually wants to work together, that enjoys each other's company, that wants to build games together and help each other and learn from each other. And we've had so much amazing feedback. Drew, you've spoken to people that are even starting the process of building out basically like coding academies with Redot as the center of it. Do you want to talk about that real quick?
It's now about 500 people listening.
I'm sorry, and I cannot remember your name, but I will definitely ping you out as soon as I find it. But there's a person in our community that decided that they wanted to start up a free game dev academy. And I believe they're calling it something like Redot Game Dev Academy, I think is what they're calling it. So we're definitely going to support their project because, we love game dev and we want to make sure that as many people as possible can learn how to do it. So there, I believe the plan for their academy is to have teach live courses essentially. And so people can come and sign up and then, find out what times they're going to be teaching and then basically it'll be like workshops. So a bunch of people will go through a game dev workshop. They'll either work through, a project. They'll probably start from scratch in some areas and, bring new people up to speed, people just trying to learn how to use the engine. I think there's a lot of potential there for learning and creating some good content, and it's going to be free.
Excellent. And that's exactly the kind of example of things that we want to promote for this community. The community, in a sense, is an open source community. And we want to continue driving home this idea of people coming together and building something just awesome. And we as the founders have come together, and while we weren't expecting this to blow up when we did do this, we're pleasantly surprised with how amazing the community has been so far. Early on, in the early stages, we had a few issues where we were not prepared for the influx of people. We didn't have a moderation team built out, but all of the guys that we've brought on so far have been completely stellar. They're helping ensure that there is a robust discussion amongst the community that stays focused on what this project's about. Now, Drew, what are some plans that we have going forward with some of our social medias in terms of our YouTube channel and things like that?
Yeah, so the YouTube channel, we've already started it. My initial plan is to start making kind of community spotlight videos where we have people that are building games or people that are teaching or doing other things Redot related. And, we'll do a little maybe 10-minute video with each one of them and just kind of spotlight their projects, what they're doing, that kind of thing. We're probably going to create a Redot podcast on there and maybe do a weekly or bi-weekly podcast where we either talk about some of the things that are going on in the community, talk about the engine process and dev process, and just kind of really spotlight the community and spotlight what's going on with the engine, games, just all that kind of stuff. So we're definitely looking forward to doing more of that kind of thing with the community and getting some eyes on some people's projects.
Yes, and one thing that I personally have been starting to work on already is work with people in the community to also produce tutorials and other things of that nature. Of course, we would be also doing engine update videos. So whenever we come out with a update, we would be, making change logs and things of that nature. And posting that not just on YouTube, but also on our Twitter account as well. So that's something that we are definitely very focused on, is making sure that there's robust communication going forward. One of the tenets the founders all agreed on very early on was that we want this to be so transparent that people will basically know what we're doing before sometimes we even know what we're doing. And so, I joke in a sense, but we very much want to emphasize transparency from the get-go with the community.
I like that.
To make sure that this is as successful as possible and that there is no more questions as to where is it going? Lack of communication from the devs, lack of communication from those who are in positions of authority in this project. And so we want to make sure that we don't make the same mistakes that, unfortunately, it seems the Godot Foundation and Godot team has made in terms of that. And while we find it very disappointing, we're looking forward to fulfilling that promise to you folks here who are listening. Yeah. So do you have anything else you want to add to that, Drew?
No, I think transparency was pretty much the kind of one of the core things that we wanted to do. Because a lot of times stuff happens behind closed doors and you just have no idea what's happening. And as a community member, that can be quite frustrating. And, it's weird with open source projects because the person developing that project doesn't really owe anybody anything. Just as the people using it don't owe the developer anything. But sometimes that can get kind of muddied, and especially when you got a big community project, it's essentially like running a business without the funding. Without the paying customers. So you have to be transparent and you have to talk to the community and you have to let them know what's going on. That's just part of it.
Absolutely.
It should be part of it.
So speaking of transparency and speaking of these sorts of things, what are some of our plans going forward in terms of funding? I know that the founders have all agreed that we have no intention as of now to be raising money or accepting donations. That is something that we have put on the back burner for a couple of reasons, and Drew can add on to my thoughts here after this. The first reason is we want to make sure that we get a successful build out to you before we do anything like that. We think it's very important that you guys see the quality of work that we're going to be that we hope to be giving to you guys on a regular basis. And we also want to make sure that if we do accept funding, that it's not something that is transactional, where you give us something and then there's an expectation of us doing a specific thing for you, as has some people, as Drew has talked about earlier. We want to make sure that there's no ability for people to question that. And so as for funding, right now it is not on our radar. If there's any changes in the next coming weeks or months, however long that may be, we will definitely let you guys know. Do you have anything to add there, Drew?
Yeah, so as everybody knows, open source projects tend to always lack funding. And a lot of times, earlier I said that nobody owes anybody anything as far as that goes. but a lot of times with open source projects, there's a big expectation there because trying to think how to put it. So
You can do it. Drew.
sometimes with open source, you have somebody that somebody's building a project, and then somebody else is demanding a fix or something from that guy, and we're getting mad at him because he's not fixing something. And so, and that guy gets pissed and just throws the open source project in the trash. I've seen that happen a few times.
The dustbin you go.
That's not going to happen here. We've had a lot of people clamoring and asking us for a way to contribute monetarily. We definitely feel like at some point that will be useful, especially as things go on. And, there's always things, we'd love to pay developers and things like that. But that's not going to be our main focus. We will provide some sort of way to donate. But we will not be taking any kind of funds for features. We don't want this to turn into just another Godot as far as that goes. We don't want big corporations to come in and just start paying us to build features that they want. And then the community languages. This is to be a community project first and foremost. If a company wants to help, they don't get to say, "Oh, well, but we need you to build these features." Like that can't be a thing going forward.
Yeah. We have to be careful because there's going to be a lot of eyes on us, and we really want to be cautious before we make any promises about how people can help, how people can fund, and things like that. So, in the long and short of it, we're not right now at a point where we can even discuss how the funding or donations or anything of that matter, however it may turn out. We're just not at a point where we're going to be making any formal announcements about that today. We really appreciate that everybody has been so eager to do so, but we're just not at a point. There's also a bunch of, as everyone can imagine, there's legal questions as well as just logistical questions as for something like that. Sure. That being said, what is the so we covered the funding and we covered the dev process and the community. There is one other thing that we needed to cover, and that was, let me pull up my notes real quick.
You took notes?
I did, yes. Yes. Okay. We're not planning on stopping people from using our images or anything like that, but we do ask that if you guys do that, you just let them know where you got it, right? So that's the kind of basic courtesy, but we're not looking to punish people as a result of that kind of stuff. So one of the things that we do plan on doing is we are this coming week, and kind of, I guess we can formally announce it now, is we are going to be doing a mascot contest. The community has overwhelmingly wanted it on the Discord. So if you are interested and if you have some artistic talent in engaging with that, we are taking submissions now. It's in the Discord. All you have to do is hop on in, and you can contribute or do your own. And then I believe in about a 1 week's time, we plan on doing a vote for the most popular one. We want, again, just to reiterate, this is meant to be community driven. So the icon itself that we have now was something that the community voted for. And that's really important. Now, for kind of to finish us off here, Drew, what is our timeline looking for our first build, roughly?
We're kind of looking at tonight. So really, if no one has ever built a big project like this, it can take a few hours to run through testing and things like that. And like any other project, we've run into hiccups getting set up, and because one of the things, I saw someone post somewhere that they said, well, it only takes a minute to push a fork button. That is true. However, it does not take a minute to set up infrastructure and get it to the point where someone can just click a link and download. That takes longer. So we're looking at possibly tonight, if not maybe early tomorrow for it to be ready. But yeah, hopefully very, very soon. Sometime between now and I would say tomorrow.
Awesome. And
I don't want a hard deadline that in case we run into any other hiccups. But I think
It's actually pretty reasonable.
currently that's the plan.
Yeah, no hard deadlines on that, but we want to give people just a clue that to be on the lookouts for our social media pages for any information on that. Also, we are going to be building out our website here at some point. We do have the website address reserved already. It's just a matter of building it out and then deciding how what content's going to go on it. Right now, I think we've kind of been discussing simple is best. Basically, have something that links to a download page and then one that links to our Discord. Just keeping it simple at first, and then down the line we can discuss maybe having a more robust feature set on there as time goes on. Now, Drew, real quick before, sorry, go ahead.
So I've got one more thing to add as far as things we're doing. So one of the things that we've talked about is documentation, Godot's documentation, which I believe is pretty good. But one of the things it lacks is a lot more examples of how to use certain functions. So one of the things we're going to do is we're going to work on improving the documentation. That's definitely something. That is definitely something that the community can help out with. I currently have a gentleman who is doing some initial work on that front. So he's going to start getting more of that lined out. But yeah, documentation going forward is going to be a big deal, and we're definitely going to make some, hopefully, improvements in that area so that it makes it easier for people that are trying to read it to make their games make it easier for them.
That's nice.
Yes, and then going forward, we will have a more robust roadmap for any of the people that are want the nitty gritty. But that's something that we have to do after we have a little bit more time to sink. After the first build is out, we can sink our teeth into it and kind of have a team built out and get some volunteer contributors contacted and start working with them. It is very much a process, so please bear with us as that goes on. And I want to mention for one last thing, and before we start taking Q&As, is that when everything that has happened thus far has been a whirlwind, and so our team, who's never had a chance to handle things like this before, are definitely new to it. So there's going to be some growing pains. We've made that clear to the community from the very beginning. There's going to be changes. There's going to be things that change here and there. But if you bear with us, we promise that, as we've said before, there's going to be as much transparency as we can possibly manage to do going forward. So we really appreciate everybody who has offered to contribute so far. Please know that we're not ignoring you. It's just a matter of we need to have the time after this first launch is done to do so. And we do intend on doing some community projects. There's been talks and discussions about doing a games jam once the first build is launched. So that definitely keep your eyes out for that as well. Is there anything else you want to touch on, Drew, before we start taking questions and I bring people up?
No, we should definitely start going ahead and answering some questions. I think Immortal's got one in Discord, though.
For sure. Let's start here on requests under the Twitter Spaces. So if you do have a question, just 1 second. sometimes takes a second for spaces to catch up.
Not a problem. I think we've got it there.
Okay, are you good? Can you hear us?
I can. You sound phenomenal.
Great, thank you.
Lunduke from the Lunduke Journal here. I got a couple of questions. So the first and foremost, I think the big burning thing is considering all of the drama, considering the bannings and the yelling and the infighting that's happened within Godot, that's been very politically focused, and all of the open source projects that are having kind of similar problems right now, from NixOS and OpenSUSE and all the others. What steps is Redot going to take so that it's hoping to avoid suffering that same fate that Godot, your parent project, is currently dealing with?
So there's two things, and Drew can answer too as well. Early on, the founders kind of started separating duties very early, where the dev team really focuses on what the dev team needs to do, so that they don't get bogged down in sort of the potential headaches that come with managing a community. And the second thing is, we're not going to be passing the buck off to other people. Rather, the founding members of this project are going to have direct hands from the very beginning. So one of our founders is the head of the Discord. Myself, I'm in charge of, at least in part, in charge of a lot of the social media aspects of it. And so as long as we stay communicative and transparent, there's less room for a rot, in a sense, to form between the founders and towards the community. Because I believe that sunlight is the best disinfectant, as the common saying goes. Drew, do you have anything you want to comment?
I don't really have anything to add to that. I feel like that pretty much covers my thoughts on that as well. I think transparency is probably the best way going forward, and separation of concerns, so to speak.
So hypothetically, if you have Discord and GitHub people who have moderation ability within the Redot project, and let's say you have, a handful of community moderator type folks that start to kind of go rogue, like we saw with Godot and other projects, how in the structure that you're envisioning with Redot would that be handled?
So myself as a founder, as one of the main guys who's going to be managing that, I would work with either our senior mods, depending on who's the problem. If it's the entire moderation team, I'm nuking it. I'm just to be straight up with you. It's going to be nuked, and we're rebuilding it from the ground up.
Nuke from orbit, turn to glass. All right, I got it.
Exactly.
I got it.
But if it's a specific individual, we would pull that person aside, kind of try and figure. I mean, people make mistakes, and you want to be gracious with people and understanding with people. And I feel like I think most of the Godot community would have been more understanding had the community manager fessed up, taken a step back, taken a break, and the founders had taken maybe direct control over their project again and said, hey, we're going to take this over for a while we reassess kind of how our staff is going to address these things going forward. But the problem is that's not what they did. The founders decided, in my opinion, mistakenly decided to basically be hands-off and pretend that the issue didn't exist until it exasperated to a point where they had to address it, but they really didn't want to. If we all are being honest with ourselves about the statement they put out, it was very milquetoast, in my opinion. So that would be my response. Drew, do you have anything you want to add?
Negative.
Awesome.
I have one or two other quick questions. People have been flooding me with questions because you've generated a tremendous amount of interest. I mean, looking at this Twitter space, there's about 600 people listening on X right now. I lost track. What do you at? Like 16,000 followers on X, and I mean, you're generating interest. People are excited about this. However, as you guys have probably already seen, many people are going to label Redot as a political protest project, right? I mean, no matter how you slice it, you guys really didn't even focus on that in the first 35 minutes of this launch. But regardless, it's going to be covered as a political protest project. And those have existed before, forks of projects for political purposes, and they do not have a good track record of continuing to exist. One obvious example was GIMP. When GIMP was forked because the name was deemed offensive, and they created essentially what was termed a woke fork of GIMP. They called it Glimpse. And
what did they call it?
They called it Glimpse, which is honestly not a bad name, but it was the purpose of it was to be political, and it died. It died a horrible, spectacular train wreck with nuclear explosions, death. How will Redot avoid this fate? And specifically, after the drama has died down, after everyone has calmed down with all the problems with Godot, and Godot may even rectify problems, right? They may look at the success that you're getting in generating interest and try to fix some of the problems. How will Redot continue to be relevant, interesting, and attract users and developers as time goes on and the Godot drama fades into the distant memory?
Drew, do you want to take that first?
Sure. So we've definitely given this a lot of thought. It is like one of the things that Game from Scratch said to me was that, these forks, they're a dime a dozen, and they go up and then they die. It does happen. Yep. But there are some projects that have not died. And so one of the ones that I point to is Pygame. There is a large Pygame is a Python game framework for anybody that doesn't know, and it was huge, and so they the current owner of the website and the documentation and all that stuff decided he was going to use the website for his own political posts, and protests. So he would change the front page to reflect that. Once or twice he took the website down in protest of something that was happening in some other country, which left users screwed because they couldn't get to the documentation. They couldn't do any of that kind of things. So the community decided that they wanted to focus on games. And so they forked it. They created Python CE. And Python CE is still the go-to. It's now the go-to for Python game development. So even if Godot rectifies or tries to rectify the issue, I don't think they are going to gain back the goodwill of the community as fast as they think they might. And I think that projects like ours are needed at this point in time. There definitely needs to be kind of back to the basics, back to just no bullshit, just games.
Yes, precisely. Well, I want to add something. Also, what Drew said is 100% accurate. One thing that I've been thinking about since I've heard from the community, our Discord is now at about almost 6,000 people in like a 4-day span. So it's absolutely insane.
That's incredible.
But the common comment that I keep on hearing from people is they want a project that they can just go and be at peace, working on projects, meet cool people, and engage in the community. So I believe 50% of this project is not just the engine. 50% of this project is the community we're building behind the engine. So that's why we're really, really focusing on making sure the mistakes of community management aren't made. Anybody who's been in the gaming industry or anyone who's worked for a brand or a company knows community managers can sink a ship very quickly, or they can be excellent PR representatives for it as well. So we just need to make sure that we're on top of the community, that we're making sure that we are continually sort of tuning it as needed, and making sure we respond to things as needed. And I think that that's going to really make sure that the kind of mistakes that have happened with Godot does not happen again. We are not going to divorce ourselves and say, well, we don't really have a Discord. It's just kind of this community Discord that exists, but we still promote it, but it's kind of there. No, we're going to have direct hands involved with the founders on the Discord, and they're the ones that control it. Period. End of story. And I think that is one of the ways that we can prevent irrelevance, because people are going to want to come to us.
Yeah.
Even if they don't use Redot, they still may want to come to us to simply have a place that they can engage with other developers.
Just as a quick follow up, I've heard both Redot and Redot. What is the proper pronunciation here?
All
redo. It's redo.
Okay.
There's another one to add to your list.
Is there a proper pronunciation at this point, or is it too early?
I'm going to be totally honest. I've said it in like a single sentence 3 different ways. So.
Yeah, he literally has.
Okay. So, I bear with me for a second. I've got another question. I've got to follow up with this. People are going to ask, is there currently or will there be a code of conduct, and what might it look like?
We have a basic one built out on the Discord. It's your typical, just basically don't be an asshole, right? Listen to the moderators.
You could just leave it at that if you like.
Yeah, pretty much. But it's your pretty standard template for a proper Discord that is anyone who's been in a Discord or a community that is running properly and functionally and isn't a nightmare to manage knows that if you have proper clear guidelines, then that would be the case. I don't have them on me right now.
Okay.
I can maybe take a look, but it's basically that's the essence of it.
Yeah. Because you know that always, as soon as a community announces a code of conduct, there's inevitably one group that's hooray and one group that's angry, and then another group that's even angrier. And you know how that goes. So I'd be interested to see how that
I don't think we need a super formal code of conduct. I think we have rules on the Discord.
Agreed.
And that's all we need. Okay. Like, we don't need anything, governing every last little thing that comes out of somebody's mouth. I think the point is to just make sure that people play nice together, and that, as they should, in any large gathering. You go to a concert, you're there for the music, you hang out, you have fun, you enjoy it. You come to our Discord, you talk about games and occasional banter, but you're nice to each other.
All right, that's fair enough.
That's the bottom line.
Fair enough.
I'll put it this way: if you go to a concert that's like kind of a formal concert, there's always expectations based on the community that you're going to, right? If you're going to a heavy metal concert, you better be ready to be in a mosh pit potentially, right? If you're going to a pop concert, it's probably not the best idea to start doing a mosh pit. So I think that you really want to kind of there's going to be an essence essentially that is created over time in the community where things like that, it becomes almost self-policing.
Yeah.
And I think that over time, the moderators in our mod, who have been working their butts off, by the way,
I saw that. You guys got basically bombarded over the last couple of days.
Oh, absolutely. But they've been troopers, and they've completely locked it down whenever it needed to be locked down, slowed it down whenever it needed to be slowed down. And I think we've only had a handful of people we've had to ban for explicit purposes. I think it's maybe only, I can't even think of maybe three off the top of my head. For the most part, the way we're going to be managing the Discord, just for anybody who is curious or wants to join, is we're always going to err on the side of timing someone out. It's like, hey, you need a break. Go do something outside, touch grass, whatever you need to do, right? Before you come back in and re-engage with the community. And if they show a repeated pattern, that's the point in which you might have to consider a ban. But I think we need to be gracious with people. I've always been understood. I have bad days, and I'm sure you've had bad days. And there's days in which we're just cranky. So, we just need to be gracious with people and give them the chance to self-correct. Because I think most people want to be in a good community. And so, I think that's just inevitable that it will self-correct. So,
yeah.
Go ahead, Drew.
Sorry, I want to answer a question from the Discord, actually. So one of the things that got asked was, do we have the expertise to handle a big project like this? The simple answer is yes. We have a lot of people here with project management experience. We've got about 4 to 6 C++ programmers, a couple of them with over 20 years experience.
This works.
The expertise we do have. We are a small team still. We're nowhere near as large as Godot yet. But I believe that we will definitely be adding more. I'm getting pinged every single day by devs that with experience that want to help. But we have to get out past this initial launch so that things can kind of settle down. We can bring more people in. We can figure out what needs to be worked on and go from there. It just takes time. This is still only 4 days old. I hope that answers that question.
Go ahead. No need to. No formality here.
Just as a follow up, that was an important question. Have you been in contact with the leadership over at Godot since you announced your project, and have you spoken with them and heard any of their thoughts on this?
Well, we have not actually spoken to anyone directly. We have seen, posts here. People send us stuff all the time. They, oh, so-and-so said this here, like it's still very much drama driven, if that makes sense.
It is, yeah.
And so, I take everything with a grain of salt. I understand, how, or I can try to understand how they must feel about, this happening. And, a lot of them may think this is just going to blow over, it's going to fall apart, et cetera, et cetera. It's none of, we haven't talked to any of them. They haven't come and tried to talk to us. We're open to talking to them if that's a thing, but,
it's a thing
right now. I think everything's still too fresh, and, there's still so much happening that, communication at this point is probably too early, but we are definitely open to, talking to anybody from the Godot Foundation.
It's fair. From the more actual feature side of things, you guys talked a lot about, implementing new features as modules, and there's kind of a backlog stemming many, many years of just a lot of pull requests and proposed features from the community. I was wondering if you guys had any examples of features that you and the rest of the community in Redot would like to see implemented.
Wait, did you cover all the names? You got to make sure you cover them all.
Redot,
that works.
Of specific examples that you would like to see Redo have that Godot currently lacks.
That's a good question. We recently merged in, I don't have it in front of me. We merged a PR for a guy that, was trying to get some light mapping baked, to work, and we merged that in. So that's kind of the first. I've seen a couple other ones that involve, light mapping. And then, there's a lot of, to my knowledge, there's a lot of improvements that could be made with the with GDScript itself. But again, I'm just trying to be careful here that I don't say we're going to do something that we,
yeah.
We haven't gone through all the PRs yet. We've gotten tons and tons of, hey, can you do this in the community, in the Discord? We've got a whole channel dedicated to requests. So, once we get out past this initial launch of the tool so people can use it, and then we can start going through and looking at everything, we'll have more to share on that for sure. And we'll probably do some more of these spaces.
Yeah, for sure. And we will probably do spaces in the future about this kind of stuff, and we'll keep the community updated. The social medias we'll stay on top of the social medias to make sure that everybody is kind of fully aware of where we're going with things. But one of the things that I hear, I can tell you kind of some broad things that the community has complained about or have mentioned to me. And one of them is like, well, I would like to see a terrain, like a built-in terrain editor. I would like to see XYZ. So really, it's just quality of life. And the big one that Drew mentioned was a lot of people want to see improvements to GD script. And so that's something that I know our devs have talked about. Like he said, we can't make any promises yet until we kind of have a breather after this initial launch and are able to kind of talk to all of the potential volunteer devs and build out a more robust team and a more robust pipeline, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, that's pretty much my take on that too. It's just a time thing, and we just need a little bit more time, and I actually need a little more sleep because I've slept maybe the first 2 days. I think I slept 3 hours each night. Last night I was up till 5 a.m. and then I might have got 5 hours last night. But
yeah, you guys could use a weekend. I appreciate. Sure. I'll step off to the side now so other people can actually speak. So, but thank you guys for taking all the questions.
Hey, we appreciate it, man. We appreciate it.
Absolutely, yeah. And let's see. I'm going to look through. I'm sorry if your name is something that is obviously going to not allow you to be up on the space. Change your name. No offense, but we're not going to be. Yeah, that's not going to happen. So let's see here. I'm going to go with the people that requested first. So Cody
watching.
I'm sorry. I'm just going to say Cody. I cannot.
Considering.
I cannot pronounce your name besides that. Go ahead and speak when you're up. And I got to make sure. Yes.
Ah. Did I lose them? Or did they just stop talking? I think they just stopped talking. Well, that was actually pretty interesting. That was pretty interesting. A second, let me make sure my sound is still okay so you guys can hear me all right. I'm going to turn up my input here because it automatically turned down my input because it does that. Yeah, it does that sort of thing. That was a bit on the fascinating side. I think they're mostly wrapping up now, but it'd be interesting to see where this goes. I appreciate that they were so open and talking about all of this, and we'll be keeping an eye on it as it goes forward over the coming days and weeks, where this fork goes. It'll be also really interesting to see what the coverage of the Redot, whatever you want to call it, fork is, because I mean, inevitably, it's going to be lambasted in some corners of the press as just a political fork. So. We're going to see. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerds and nerdettes across the inner tube, I do declare, end broadcast.